Although weeping lasted all night, I know that joy comes in the morning light. So I march on to a new song, 'cause I've been marching to that old one way too long. And I gotta move on and take new steps every day, 'cause I know there is got to be another way. And I'm brighter day, so I march on.
Hello, everybody. P.U.R.E. Live. Another Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you know, if you have seen this show before, we start off with our sponsor.
In a recent service, Pastor Dan asked if anyone felt disconnected, not apart, all by yourself, alone, or on your own. Realizing that every day, too many people in our community and even in our churches feel disconnected. In our CFC Life Group, we want to let people know that they belong. That's the most important reasons that we have life groups. And now we've added an online community access. With social media fellowship, we consider that connecting people can be messy. Sometimes we have real challenges such as schedule conflicts, transportation and mobility issues, as well as just feeling too tired to travel. We purposefully schedule our life group sessions to explore life application of the message with a discussion among friends. This online life group is hosted by Drs. Aaron and Margaret Jamal, who truly enjoy exploring life in God's Word. So we invite you to belong. Join the newly launched CFC online life group today.
Join the online life group today. Not tomorrow, but today. And we also have, for those of you that are wondering where I get some of my wardrobe from that I wear on the show, it's from this one right here, Posh Women's Apparel. Classy, sophisticated, stylish. Here's some of the styles that she has. Beautiful. I actually have this dress there on the far left bottom. And if you would like to go to the website, that is poshwomensapparel.com. Again, that is poshwomensapparel.com. Alrighty then, let's get into it. So, everyone say we have a treat. We have had her on the show before, but not discussing her book. And the book that we are discussing is When Girls Don't Tell. We have Dr. Margaret Jamal with us. And before we bring her on to speak, we are going to play this video that is talking about the book.
What are you reading? I am reading this book, When Girls Don't Tell. What is that about? This is a book by Dr. Margaret Jamal, and it's about revictimization of sexual abuse.
What?
It's amazing. It's about, her life and what she went through, and when she was a little girl, of how, men would climb into the bed with her.
Oh my God.
And this book is so graphic. I mean, it's so real to life as you read it, because she's talking about how he would just come in and just take advantage of her. I mean, can you imagine someone just taking advantage of your body, taking your innocence away? Just thinking about even on the cover of the book, when I first saw it, she's in the bathroom kind of crouched down, and she's hanging onto a teddy bear, and just right by the toilet, just like, and you think about things that, little girls are going through, and sometimes they're isolated, or they're by themselves, and they don't want to tell. They don't want to talk about it. And when you think about it, it's just so sad, because as a little child, when a man takes advantage of a little girl and her innocence, then she's never again the same.
How old is she?
She was a young girl in the story, but it follows through her life when she was a teen and she got older.
She said it's difficult for women and girls to talk about being raped. She also stressed on however, that those experience the re-victimizing from sexual child abuse and feeling to express themselves. So this book's got to be a good book because she's talking about how she overcame, even as a girl, when girls don't tell.
Right.
When girls don't tell.
Rape is one thing when you get raped one time,
Right.
but then think about re-victimization.
Oh my God.
And a lot of girls, and even boys, but a lot of girls will get victimized again and again. Anytime that guy wants to just take advantage of you, he feels like he has a license.
I mean, look at the titles of the books. Snake in a project.
Right.
From the project to the pit.
Right.
My identity crisis. Windy City school days. The flypaper factor. Recovering of the sight to the blind. I mean, just the titles alone.
Yeah, it's a good
Want me
book.
to look at the book?
It's a good book. It is really, really good. And the part that really, one of the parts that really got to me is when she was the child was in her bed. And then the man came and got her. The mother and father were in the bed. This guy that was sleeping and taking advantage of the little girl, he brought her into the bed and literally took advantage of her body. And the mother didn't wake up. You just imagine there's this child in the bed and this man is taking advantage of this child. I mean, that is just, and this is something that I know happens everywhere.
Every day. It happens every day. What do the statistics say?
Whew. How deep is that? So without further ado, we're going to bring in Dr. Margaret Jamal.
Hi. Hello, Asia. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Wow. Those statistics make your heart stop for a second. So
Yeah. And keep in mind that it's growing. It hasn't gotten better. The issue is
right,
growing.
absolutely right. Absolutely right. And for all of those that are listening, please feel free to leave comments or ask questions. I will be paying attention to the comment section. And I see you, Suzanne. Blessings to you as well. So, Dr. Margaret Jamal,
Mm.
what I would like to know first and foremost is what led you to write the book When Girls Don't Tell?
Well, actually, speaking with my mother, Reverend Hazel Ford, she's passed. And when we began to have our conversations together and opening up, she was saying that, to me, she said, "You've been through a lot. You really need help," is what she was saying to get through things. And I had not realized until I began to open up and share with her the way I was sharing with her, the depth and the vastness of the experiences that I've had regarding abuse.
Hmm.
And in speaking with other people, I I noticed something. It's like people were willing to talk about what happened, one time,
Mhm.
but there is the the trauma of post traumatic stress and those illnesses that go with it. People don't tend to talk about. So my main objective was that someone would read this book and not feel like they were by themselves and that they were just, singled out. Because at some point, that's what I felt like. I felt like, okay, so there are people who've been abused, but people have not experienced so much of what I've experienced. And in speaking with, like I said, a few other people, it's like, why won't we talk about that? You know?
Mhm.
Um, and so that was really my main purpose, is to maybe reach out to someone who has been re-victimized. And I know a lot of people don't like the term victim, and we'll get into that as we go
Right.
along. But it's just, I remember that there were times that I wanted to talk to somebody but felt that no one would understand. And that was really my main objective, is to share it, let somebody know that they're not alone, that there have been other people who experience numerous sexual assaults from different people, and that there is hope. you know that was the main
Absolutely.
thing. It was also a release for me, and
Yeah.
it helped me to begin to heal as well, as I came face to face with my truth and
Well,
my
that's good.
reality.
I'm glad it helps your healing.
Yeah, yeah, because when you experience whatever you experience, any trauma, you really you really want to heal. Hmm.
So, for those of you that have just joined us, I'm speaking to Dr. Margaret Jamal, who is the author of When Girls Don't Tell, Survivor's Story About Child Sexual Abuse and Re-Victimization. And you can find this book on Amazon, I know for sure.
Hmm.
Um, oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to clarify what is meant by this, by re-victimization, so that
Okay.
people would understand. So my emphasis has been on sexual abuse. Childhood sexual abuse is the acronym CSA, and re-victimization is when a child is first of all sexually abused and then experiences sexual abuse again. The area that I was covering is when they experience it with different people. So they're
Okay.
different. Yeah, so they're different perpetrators, if you will. And that is something that people are beginning to study more, in the field of mental health, and seeing, as you can see, that statistic is that up to what 55.4% who experience childhood sexual abuse have reported that they've experienced subsequent abuse in later years. And I realized that I had a build, just a number of experiences that, when I actually began to think about it, hey, Shepherdess, thank you for this. Um, yes, yes, it absolutely. She was stating that sexual abuse was not labeled in the Black community. Um, Too often in the communities is something that is accepted. It's not considered, I mean, it's still considered wrong, but it's not discussed, so that you can't heal. And so the child is left to process this thing by herself or himself in some situations, and led to believe that it is their fault, that they were actually part of what happened to them, and so that they were like co-conspirators in a sense, right? So so if you're telling that person, you're telling on yourself.
Mhm.
And that is, and as far as the history is concerned, if it happens again, you begin to think something is wrong with me, right? It's something that I'm doing. And typically perpetrators will do their best to make you think that it was your fault as well.
Right.
Hmm.
True. Um, and just in case you guys didn't notice, we do share a name. This is my mother that I'm speaking to. Um, so I read the book myself, learned a whole lot. Um, I want to know. when you were writing the book and it was released, and even giving it to me, how did you feel about your family reading your history, your stories?
I was frightened. I was so scared. I was not so much of the adults. I was afraid of of the reaction from our children, because I felt that I had to disclose some things about myself because it was part of what shaped my behaviors, and I just wanted I wanted my children to understand that. Our oldest daughter um, would saw the gradual growth or the gradual development, but she
Mhm.
saw some of the before and the after I started to heal, right?
Okay.
And so I believe that it would, as it answered questions for me, I was hoping that it would kind of answer questions for my family, particularly my children, right? Why I behaved a certain way, why there was certain, because even in the adult life there would be certain things that triggered. It would be like, well, why
Mhm.
is she going off on that? Why is she
Right.
so afraid? Why is she so angry? Why is this? And as I wrote the book, I began to answer those questions for myself, and I wanted my children to understand that aspect of me that is part of my development, really. And so, yeah, I was
Mhm.
very afraid that, because as you know, when by the time you were born, well, more so when by the time Elijah was born, we had been in the church for a while. So I was
Right.
such a different person, right? But
Right.
I didn't want, for some reason, I just wanted my children to know that I wasn't always as adorable as I have become, and that, yeah, I've been through some things, you know.
Right.
And I also felt that if you knew more about that if you came into some situations yourself, that you would
Mhm.
be able to talk to me, you know,
Mhm. Hmm. Why did you call it when girls don't tell?
because I believe that a large a lot of the reason that I experienced what I experienced so many times is because I did not tell when I was younger.
Hmm.
And so I believe that if I had said what I said, talked about it, said what I knew, that it would have been something that was exposed, not for the sake of getting anyone in trouble, but for getting help at that time, and then I would have been maybe even talked to about how to be more alert, more aware, and more protective even of myself,
Hmm.
and not be in situations. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that I was the blame. I was the one that should have been blamed for it. I don't believe in that. But what I'm saying is that even in all honesty, in recounting certain situations, there were situations that I would not have gone into. Like now that I'm I'm older, and I've actually had to look and study the book myself. I'm very cautious because I have realized that there are a lot of people that are around in this world that would love to hurt people, or that can't help themselves from being abusive,
Hmm.
and that I'm less likely to encounter them if I'm not alone. Does that make sense? If
It
I
doesn't.
don't if I don't let myself be so vulnerable to those people. And I believe that if I had had spoken up, however, if one spoke up, they sometimes called fast or flirtate. Yeah. If I had spoken up, and that's true, people can be misjudged. That if I had spoken up, my thought is that I not only would I have been spared more trauma, but other people would have as well, because they would have been on the alert, regarding someone.
Okay. So
Yeah.
after going through, yeah, after going through the things that you've gone through, and then having children of your own, um, were you afraid that history would repeat itself with your own?
Absolutely. I was terrified. It started with Gina. I was over when after our oldest daughter, I was married to her father first. And when after we were divorced, I was suspicious about every male, any male. I mean, I felt like, it was like you see the movie The Matrix.
Right.
Well, one of the concepts of the Matrix is that anyone who isn't unplugged is a potential agent or a potential, right?
Right.
Well,
Right.
I figured any male was a potential abuser, anyone.
Interesting.
And it took a while for my husband now, who I love very dearly, to for me to trust him. And I would ask questions on a regular basis. That, I wouldn't want them to be around any male. I didn't suspect women, but later on, I realized that women were doing it too, right?
Absolutely. Right.
But yeah, so that was having children was nerve wracking, and often children, they say about their parents, they say they're so strict on me, and they get all upset because we don't let them do what they want to do, right?
Right.
And y- I agree with that. I want to
Mhm.
keep that up. I want to address that, please, in a
Okay.
little bit when I finish this.
Sure.
Um, but speaking to people who feel like they want to be alone with their partners and they don't want to chaperone, when you really think about it, why do you want to be alone? Why do you not want a chaperone? It's because you want to do something that you don't want to be accountable for. There's
Hmm.
very little that you can't do in front of a chaperone. The one thing that they want you to be by yourself for is sexual contact. I mean, you could give somebody a kiss, a nice friendly kiss, you can hug and all of that stuff. But if they want to have more intimacy, that's when they don't want you watching, unless they're like you watching, you know. But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying nowadays, so this rebellious thing where people don't want chaperones, they don't want people around. Think about it. Why not? Okay. Thank you. Rich Lamar is saying the book is needed. I help people who are dealing with depression. Many women have told me they were molested, but never told anyone. And that is a very good point. Why do you think that girls don't tell? Why do you think that women don't tell? Have you ever asked yourself that, Asia?
I have asked myself that because I'm one of those that didn't tell.
And why is that?
Um, a couple of reasons. So one of the reasons is because I did not want um, I didn't want my parents to be ashamed of me because I allowed such a thing to happen. And I don't know, I didn't want to be seen as unpure. And I was concerned about how uh, my father would react.
Hmm.
I didn't
All of
want him
that.
to get into trouble.
All of that. So
Right.
what keeps us from telling is what? Fear.
Absolutely.
And fear puts us in bondage. And we have the fear, we have the bondage, and we don't function well. And the thing is that it spills over into our lives and how we function in our jobs and very much in our relationships.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, our emphasis has been, my husband and I together, is helping people, and not, I wouldn't say like the regular counseling, but in coaching and listening, and trying to encourage people to discuss things so that they don't have the fear and the shame, but recognize that something happened to them, but it wasn't something that they made happen. It was something that happened to them that they need to discuss, and they need to be able to process what happened, because often it interferes with their relationship, their marriage,
Right.
where the one who has felt victimized now is taking it out on their spouse, or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and then all of a
Right.
sudden they're acting strange, and they're like, well, what's wrong, what did I do? And they might not have really done anything, but there was a trigger, or there was,
Trigger.
in certain situations there was a scent. Like I remember experiencing someone having someone having the scent of somebody who had molested me, and I
Okay.
just
Mm-hmm.
it was a trigger. I didn't want
Right.
it just took me, it was repulsive to me, that smell. And that's another thing that you notice with people who have experienced revictimization, that there's certain senses that are heightened or
Right.
exaggerated sensitivity. And in some situations, it is sensuality. So that's why you also hear, as even in my case, where people become more promiscuous,
Hmm.
looking for that gratification, like drugs or whatever. And it's something that does need to be dealt with. It's something that does need to be counseled, so that people see that there is a direct connection with our behavior to what we've experienced.
Absolutely. Um, how did you handle learning that you did have children that dealt with it themselves?
Well, first I cried. I cried, and then I began to try to, I asked God why, because I'm telling you, I prayed and begged God for that not to happen to our children. You know, um, and I had to process that. I had to process that. Well, for one, I began to question myself about what did I do wrong. You know, why wasn't I there enough? I should have been there. It never should have happened. And so I began to think in my head, how can I, what, first of all, going backwards, what didn't I do
Hmm.
that allowed this to happen? Then I began to go forward. What can I do to keep it from happening? Right. And so that was the controlling response that you might have experienced, right? The suffocation that, is like, where are you going? Who are you going to
Right.
be with? That kind of stuff. And even with that, it didn't stop it.
Right.
So, you have all these questions. I had all these questions with God. You know what happened with me? Why would you let that happen to our children? Right? But then I began to realize that if I was going to blame myself, then I would also blame my mother, right?
Hmm. Right.
And then you keep going, and then she would blame her mother. And, we keep going back, right? But I don't blame her for what happened,
Right.
because she didn't do it,
Nope.
right? And I recognize that you cannot be with your child all of the time. You can talk to them, you can question them, you can teach them, don't, say no to strangers and everything. But you saw the statistics. Many of these happen with people, friends, and family.
Right.
So it's like there's no
Who you
way.
know and trust.
Right. I mean, you send your child to school. You can't take them to the school and keep on. One situation with me happened with a student in school when I was in grammar school,
Hmm.
in 9 years old, in fourth grade. So, you send your child to school. You can't stay there with them. You can't be with them 24 hours. The only one that can be with them is God.
Right.
So then my question was, how do we help our children deal with it? How do we help our children process it? How do we help our children heal from the experience? And then you have to treat each one individually, you know. And in other words, I had to recognize that the way I process it is not necessarily the way you process it, right? And
Right.
that that's not easy to do. It's like, well, this is the way you do it. This is how you fix it. No, no, you have to respect that each person is individual.
Absolutely.
Right. Blame
Right.
is vicious and it's unproductive. However, this is what happens. If you're able to say, this happened to me, and you're able to blame somebody, blame your parents. My parents didn't watch me enough. My parents didn't teach me enough. You're able to then take some of that burden of blame off yourself, because
Uh,
it's a horrible burden to carry, right? But it doesn't fix anything,
no.
because when you blame that person, it's like, well, what's your solution?
Right.
If I blame my mother, then how could she fix it? She say, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for what?
Nothing.
Right. That's why it's like, even like with these people, with this movement where people want to identify, this person did this to me, this person did this to me. It's like, what do you want now? Now that you said it, what would you like to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now,
Right.
me, in all honesty, I didn't want everybody to, I wanted, first of all, for it not to have happened to me. Second, honestly, I wanted answers. I wanted to know, why did you do that? Why did you pick me? Why
Mm-hmm.
did you know? There was a situation. I believe I discussed it in the book, but I was actually abducted on my way to school. After that, I started driving. This was the time in high school, and grammar school was something different. But I was abducted by this guy, and he told me I got a gun. He took me over here, and he told me that he was going to rape me. Right. Now, we were there in school, and the thing is, I've always been inquisitive, and I'm talking, and I see people going past me that I know. And he said, "For me, I better not say anything, or else he was going to kill me." And I'm not thinking about things, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared. But I asked him. I said, "Why? Why did you grab me? Why?" I looked at people, and I really remember saying this. It's like, they these people look prettier than me. Why did you pick me? I really wanted to know, why did you pick me? You see what I'm saying? That was something that I was able to ask of an early the perpetrator, someone that I referred to later on in life, where I said, why did you do that to me? I wanted to know why.
Did he answer you?
Yeah, he said, I don't know. I
Huh.
can't say why. Now, I didn't believe that he didn't know anything, but the reality of it is, there was the one in college. I remember asking him why. Now, he said something that was interesting to me, and he said that he had heard that I was loose, that I was having sex with all these people, which was not true, right?
Hmm.
And then when he approached me, I said I didn't want to do anything with him. So he got angry and felt that I was doing with everybody else, so I should have done it with him, that I was rejecting him. So then he
It's a
decided to
sign that
force
you're
himself
rejected.
on me. Right. So, he responded to feeling rejected. But I'm saying, it's like, even asking why, even if you get the answer, it doesn't make it better, you know? And
No,
so
it won't keep it
those,
from happening again either.
right. And so you said, how did I feel when that happened? I could not help but, even with our children, ask why.
Hmm.
Why? And then trying to figure out, I mean, how you gonna even get to the bottom of what happened, unless they want to talk about it. And even for myself, I wanted to say what I wanted to say, but I didn't feel like answering a whole bunch of questions.
Hmm.
After I was done with it, I was done with it. I didn't want to talk about it all the time. I wanted to now fill my head with some other stuff other than the trauma that I had experienced and the shame that goes along with it.
Did you ever try to record any of them?
Yes, I did.
And what?
Um, Again, the one in that I was telling you about in high school where I was abducted, that I did report that. Actually went down to the police station. Nothing came of it, you know. And what really bothered me about that is I had heard rumors in school that some people in my classroom knew the person who had grabbed me and had actually encouraged him to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to teach me a lesson because I was stuck up. So I was told. And really, I
So,
was isolated because I just didn't know how to socialize. I had issues.
so what was the reasoning for nothing coming of it? Why was that person not captured? And
Well,
or-
back then, especially, and I'm glad Sister Suzanne had mentioned that. Um, People were not taken seriously. You had to have all sorts of evidence for sexual assault for them to do anything. So I'm young. The whoever the accuser is, I knew his face. I identified parts of his clothing. He had given me that his name was a certain name, and the name that he said he was actually written on his gym shoe. And
hmm,
they had me look at some pictures, and they never talked to me about it again. Again, back then, if they didn't feel, because as I was older, something else happened, and then I did report that as well. If they didn't feel that they were gonna, the district attorney could actually make a case and put them away, um, it just didn't go any further. So, in other words, they had to beat you up. They had to have evidence of it, and then after all of that, you still had to prove that you were not a willing partner.
hmm,
See, because what they would do, what the perpetrators would say over and over again, is that it was consensual. Is that this is what we were doing? This is what you wanted. It got a little wild, but I did do this because here's the evidence. But we did this together.
hmm.
Yeah.
So, I remember because I participated in the show that you had dealing with
My
um,
time to tell.
right, my time is hell, dealing with this topic. And you've done things to, I feel, to help with the healing of those that have gone through similar situations. Um, in doing all of this, have you felt discouraged in learning that so many of them get away with it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that um I don't believe ultimately that anyone is going to get away with it. I believe that, people have, I believe that perpetrators are tormented. In fact, when we dealt with something with access to recovery, one of our guests on the show that you mentioned, My Time to Tell, what was her name? Hattie Wash, the doctor, Hattie Wash. Um, I agree with that. We'll address that as well. Hattie Wash, she was the only person I actually met who was a mental health expert who her patients were rapists. They were she dealt with alcoholics and rapists. She's African American, by the way. And she wanted to help them to that wanted to stop because she felt that there was a sickness.
Hmm.
And I feel that it's a sickness as well.
Mhm.
I just, my thought is I don't want them to continue to do that. In my opinion, the more they get away with it, the more it builds up an appetite to continue to do it.
Makes sense.
And so that is my concern, is that I want them to stop. I just want them not to rape people. And
Hmm.
so, you know, the purpose of the program is actually to help people to heal. But I realized that there were going to be people who were actually perpetrators that would listen to the program as well. And part of the treatment that Hattie Wash had was to help perpetrators understand what they did and how it impacted their victims.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
she thought
so
that would work.
I'm sorry.
And this person thought that would work.
Well, in her opinion, it was helping. It was helping because in some situations they hadn't thought about it. They hadn't thought that far. You
Hmm.
know, they hadn't seen their victims as people. Actually, that it really bothered them. That they hadn't seen that it would impact somebody to the point that they're afraid of living, that they are now sick, that they have post traumatic stress.
Stress. Yeah. Post traumatic stress disorder.
Right. They hadn't seen that impact from people. And I believe that if people who were hurting people would actually be able to see how much they've hurt people, that it would bother them to the point that maybe they may seek help.
Hmm. Okay. I always imagine, and um, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I feel like some people actually get off on people's pain and suffering.
You mean they enjoy it?
Correct.
Well, right, but even if that is the case, that at some point they need to recognize that they are sick, you know.
Mhm.
Um right, I agree with that, Mr. Rich, that many abusers have been abused. And there is something that's wrong though, mentally. And even if I mean, there are people who enjoy pornography or child pornography, right? But they didn't realize something was wrong with it until they got arrested and went to
Hmm.
jail. No, you cannot have that on your computer. You cannot have that in your in your person at all. It's illegal. Child pornography is illegal. But there are
Right.
people that, though they are in encouraged by that they are stimulated by it, don't realize the impact that it has on the children or on the families, that all of that's related. And if you can get people to at least go that far and to see the impact that it's having on them, in some situations they can at least get to the point that they say, I want to stop, I want some help. It may be hard for them, but they can at least say whatever it takes. Do you know what? Years ago, in order to prevent people from being so aggressive, and I don't know that it's not happening now, they would give people an operation called a lobotomy. And that operation would yes, that operation would make it so that they're less aggressive. They're less aggressive, they're less likely to uh be involved in sexual abuse. So they were mentally giving them an operation on their brain, right, in order to stop it, which
Okay.
says something. That says that there's something happening mentally that causes people to do that. Now, I believe there's a spiritual component as well. But I'm saying, if you can, they're doing something physical. If they can't do it physically, right? If they have no desire to do it anymore, then that's a good thing, right?
Right? Right.
And so I'm not saying that I think that everybody who is a practitioner who is abusing people should have a lobotomy. But what I'm saying is I believe that with the science that we have, that we should seek some sort of treatment that could work for for people, that have this issue, that would address the urge or the compulsion to rape people. That there may be a treatment that would actually eliminate even the urge to go out and do that.
So you believe that those that have that appetite to sexually assault, abuse, are are able to be rehabilitated?
I want to believe that. I want to believe that, and because I believe that people can change. I've changed.
Mhm.
I'm not the person that I was before. I'm not the angry person that I was before. I'm not as aggressive uh or promiscuous as I was before. I mean I was, you know.
Mhm.
I, that's one of the reasons I read the wrote the book. It's because I wanted, okay, this is it. A lot of times in communities, in circles, in schools, there were these kids that were called the bad kids, right? Because they went around having sex. The bad girls went around having sex with the boys or whatever, right?
Right.
But nobody asked why. They just said she's bad, she's fast, she's
Right.
sassy, she's fast, she's, what is it, But
Mm-hmm.
people didn't ask why. Where did that come from, right?
Right.
And I believe more than not, I mean, there may be exceptions. It may be because they were exposed to pornography, like what you just put up there. But I believe more than not, they were introduced to sexuality and they're looking for that stimulus. When we were younger, we used to see, excuse me, little children, like masturbating on their parents' legs and stuff. And people would laugh and they thought that was cute. But the thing is that it was a natural thing that they didn't, they thought it was cute, but they didn't discourage it. I remember I saw it, in some of the circles when people were getting high and we were younger, and I'm looking them. So what's that baby doing? What's that little kid? So the thing is that what you want to do is, instead of shunning that person, excuse me, and just saying that they're bad or nasty or whatever, try to find out, why are they doing that?
Hmm.
Why are they being sassy? Why is this little kid, this 9-year-old or this 5-year-old flirting with these boys and men? Why is she doing that? Or why is he doing that? Why are they trying to touch each other?
Hmm.
Why, what happened? Somehow they were introduced to that stimulus,
Right.
you know? And so what I'm saying is, I believe that if you talk about it, and even if they have been abused, and even because what I'm saying is, sometimes now these children are just, they're imitating what was done to them, but not thinking that they're being abusive. Your babysitter playing
Mm-hmm.
around with your kid because somebody played around with the babysitter, and
And
then
then
this
this
teenager
teenager.
now is going to jail, being tried as an adult, and
Mm-hmm.
had no intention of hurting the child and didn't even think it was hurting. They thought it was bad because they didn't want anybody to know, but they didn't know that it was going to be hurtful. So in those situations, I think that people who have been labeled as sexual abusers can be rehabilitated.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Interesting. So let's bring it back to you, because you're the one that wrote the book. Um, when girls don't tell, so you've gone through things from your childhood all the way up to your adulthood.
Hmm.
Now you are Dr. Margaret Jamal. You've been married for a few decades. You
Indeed.
have
To a
children
wonderful man. Yes.
and grandchildren. What do you think saves you from being a part of that vicious cycle of
God.
becoming an abuser yourself?
God.
Okay.
God.
You said period, point blank.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, God opening my eyes to, first of all, deal with my reality. Um, okay. And, opening to deal with my reality, and then realizing I needed to be a different person. I needed to have a change, a total change. So mind, body, and spirit. And as I would say, for me, as the Holy Spirit dominated my spirit, I didn't want the same things. I didn't think the same way. I don't. I feel that I have the ability to not do things because of my relationship with the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is some interesting. They're making some interesting statements too about the pleasure centers and everything. But one of the other things that I wanted to say that I thought was that's important that I want to share is that when I was young, when this first happened to me, I technically I was abusive as a kid. And I'll explain that because what I was taught, I went and I mentioned that in the book. I don't go too much in depth, but I turned around, I got in trouble because I was showing a little boy what I had just learned.
Oh,
Okay? So that is part of what happens with that cycle. Did I know it was wrong? Yeah, I knew it was wrong because I took him to the closet to show him. We had to have privacy, right?
right.
But that was I got spanked for it, and that was when something I believe something snapped in me because the person who spanked me was the one who introduced me to it, and I remember the words because I he said, "I'm ashamed of you," and so I'm like, So I believe in my child mind, anytime that I did that, I was doing something to be ashamed of, which of course I didn't know what ashamed of was then, but I know it wasn't good. I know it meant somebody was upset with me, right?
Right.
And so I think that there is a complex situation, but I believe that the solutions are not as complex for people who have experienced, and I say re-victimization. That's the one that, any victimization is bad. But I think that if you see that you are growing into a cycle, and there are some people who have labeled them as generational curses, right? I think
Right.
that we're all born into generational curses. I don't think that that curse is any worse than any other curse. All the curses are bad, but those again, let me take that back. The sin against your body is one that is expressed even in the Bible as not the same as the other sins. When you sin against one's own body, like with fornication or whatever, and sexual abuse, but one of the things that occurred to me that I could do, that I did do, that I know makes a difference is I recognize as I learned uh, biblical truths is that element of sexuality is something that's done in, I agree, people overlook that element of sexuality is a spiritual bond as well as a physical bond and an emotional and mental bond, right?
Right.
But it's reserved for marriage, right? That's the one thing that if you do that with somebody else, that you can, the Bible says, then you can get a divorce, right?
Right.
So I thought, and I'm thinking like this, and and I'm still processing it, that at that point you are now bonded. with the perpetrator.
Mm.
And that bond needs to be broken. Excuse me. So what we did in one of our programs is we had a divorce ceremony.
Hmm.
I actually wrote up some divorce papers and had told them to list, if they were re-victimized, every person that had sexually abused them. And we were going to have a divorce. And they're
Wow.
going to be free from that person. And in your mind, you're divorced. And I have to tell you, for me, it made a big difference. You
I
know,
never thought about it like that. That's, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I didn't think about that binding situation when that happens.
yeah, because think about it. It's like, so it's like, when you're married, you start to pick up some of the traits of your husband, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, now I like to do certain things that I didn't used to like, and I'm interested in certain things I'm interested in. Personality traits. I believe that when you are sexually abused, especially if there's a cycle, that you begin to pick up traits of your perpetrator, like in a marriage,
Hmm.
right? It's like, why am I angry? Why am I like this? I didn't used to be like this. I'm not, you know. And I also believe that chronic illness is tied to revictimization. And there was something I was going to share, some work, excuse me, by some doctors that actually have been studying the link between chronic illness, people who continue to get sick, and with these illnesses that sometimes they can't explain, and they label it fibromyalgia, or migraines was one of them, and that what many of them had in common was the fact that they had been sexually molested, that they've been abused,
Yeah.
and that
I,
there's a tie in it. So what I'm saying is, I believe that we need more emphasis on two things: the treatment of those who have been victimized, but the treatment for people who have been re-victimized should not be the same as one who's been victimized one time. And I think that it is something that needs to be ongoing, the treatment. And I believe that it does need to be holistic, mind, body, and spirit. Also, though, I believe that perpetrators need to be encouraged to get help. That the solution shouldn't always be, the only thing to do for you is to lock you up in jail. But I believe that people should try to look for ways to stop them from doing, because somebody can rape someone and they'll go to jail, but they're coming back out.
right.
And while they're in jail, they're not learning good behavior. You know,
May pick up some more bad behavior.
some more bad behaviors, learn, and get even more aggressive. So
Right.
what I'm saying is, I think that we need to put much more awareness, and just more studies, and seek solutions for those people who now believe that they have to rape other people, that they're aggressive like that. And and hopefully they'll get to the point that they say, look, I don't want to do this anymore, whatever it takes. If they need the lobotomy, give them the lobotomy. They need, they said that they used to give people in the army something, and I don't know what it is, but it was something called saltpeter. I had heard about. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
But because I wonder, so it was like they would give people in the army or in the service something that would keep them from, being stimulated and aggressive. So they kind of tone it down, because they don't want them going around having sex with people, especially if they're married. But think about it, they're away from their spouses for years. So what do they
Right.
do?
I never heard of that one before. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah.
Not that I want to give it to somebody. I'm just curious. Oh, that might have came out wrong.
Well, you don't want the Lorena Bobbitt rehab.
that
School of Rehab.
was,
That
how was
look that
that?
up if nobody knows what I'm talking about. Lorena Bobbitt, she had a quick solution for her, but that was her husband. It was like
Chop chop.
you don't know what to do with it, and you don't need it. But yeah, so you don't want to do that.
You don't want that. Um, so with you having your book and with you learning the things that you've learned, what do you want people to learn from reading your book? Those that would like to go and pick it up, what are you hoping that they will get from it?
Well, I hope that one anyone that would read it would um, make themselves available so that people who experience revictimization have someone to talk to. I think that one of the hardest things is for you to experience it once or more than once, and you feel like people are tired of hearing you talk about having experienced sexual abuse. That people would learn how to be an active listener, not a guided listener. In other words, always wanting people to say, they've been through abuse and now I'm doing well. Praise him, that kind of thing. If they're not doing well, then they should be able to say that, right?
Mhm.
And have someone to talk to. So that's for everybody in general, be that ear. For people who have experienced revictimization, that read the book, I want them to know that they're not alone. I want them to know that there are other people that have experienced it that don't feel that you're weird or you're strange or that you should blame yourself, but understand some of what you're experiencing. Because everybody's experience is their own, unique. I wouldn't say that just because somebody else says, that they've been victimized over and over again, and I'm like, I know exactly how you feel. I still don't know exactly how they feel, but
Right,
here's a sympathetic heart. Here's a connection here, that not to blame yourself, not to put yourself down, to believe that there's hope, that you can actually survive this and even thrive beyond it. That's for
right,
people who've experienced it. For caregivers and loved ones, for want them to be listeners, but also what I would like is for perpetrators. Yep. Okay. See, he looked it up. Saltpeter.
mhm.
Okay, that is. See, it was for that, and they gave him. And for perpetrators, take saltpeter. So, curb that sexual appetite. But I would want them to look and see and get in their spirit or in their heart uh, a sense of atonement, a sense of I don't want to hurt people anymore, and get help. Look for help. Look for um, you know um, support or whatever, mental health, and make it known that you actually want to stop, before it gets to the point that you're just thrown into jail with other people who don't care about you stopping, who will abuse you even more. I don't want to see anyone abused. I don't want to see the perpetrators abused. I don't want anybody to have to go through that. And
Right.
so that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people read the book and that people who can make a difference will seek real solutions. That's one of the reasons that I started even helping people to establish nonprofits. My ultimate goal is for those nonprofits to be resources for people, because people who've experienced revictimization need a variety of support.
Right.
Not only just counseling, you need encouragement, you need mental health, spiritual support, and also going to the doctor. Like I said, there are many people who are suffering chronic illnesses, and it makes you feel even crazier. You feel when you go to the doctor, you say, "Well, these are my symptoms. What's wrong with me?" Well, I don't know. I haven't heard that one. You know, and it's like, well, and then it's like the doctors, because they never heard of it, they're frustrated and they're like, give me something that I'm used to. That's what you feel. You feel like if you don't have something that they're used to, that you can't go to them at all. So that's
So
what,
that's what
ultimately
ultimately.
I'm hoping that people get healed in
All
those
right.
areas.
Me too. And for those of you that don't have resources, um, oh, does not work well. Soft fusion. Uh,
I
okay.
hope it's something he's reading. I don't think that he's.
No, I don't think that's from experience. You're like,
Oh, okay.
so for those of you that are looking for resources, rain.org is one, and resilience. Resilience is actually who helped me. They have a lot of resources and can get you legal support as well, and connect you with uh, financial assistance if
Hmm.
you need that as well as a result of your abuse. So there are some great resources out there, and I will post them on my website, which
Hmm.
is asiajamal.com or .net, whatever floats your boat. You can see the website right here. Please subscribe, and you will see all the great resources and things I have for you, and you'll see more information as I post them. And this is my email if you want to reach out to me if you have questions about what was said, or if you have a topic idea, you can go to Asia at asiajamal.com. And yeah, so I thank you, Reverend Margaret, Dr. Margaret Jamal, Reverend Dr. Margaret Jamal. Um, I really appreciate you being courageous enough to come on and talk about your experiences and having written that book. I truly appreciate it.
And I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you opening up to me. I appreciate you working with me to help people as well, and you sharing your experiences. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I believe together we will be able to help people. Hmm.
Me too. Me too.
Praise the
We
Lord.
need more allies. So if you guys want to help,
Yes.
let us know.
Also, can I just say something about this book? Now,
Sure.
this is the cover of the one I first wrote, but I have a revision, and that was the cover that Asia showed earlier. It's black. It's mostly black and white. I would prefer that people order that.
Mm-hmm.
You will see that, right? That's the
Right.
way that cover looks. And then I also include a journal, and people have actually ordered the journal so that you can actually take notes if you have a support group or someone that you want to support. You can get that as well. Okay, I just wanted
Absolutely.
to say that.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you, Dr. Margaret Jamal. And to all of you, remember to embrace that perfect design, which is you. And be here next week at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a good evening.
Bye. Be blessed. Love you.